Thank you, everyone, for attending Baba's memorial and prayer service. And I'm sad not to be there in person, but I'm going to be sharing some words. It's very hard to encapsulate his life, his prolific scholarship, his integrity, and his everyday virtues as a father, as a husband, as a grandfather, as a sibling, as a son. But I'll try to focus on some of the things that have meant the most to me personally. So my father's greatest gift to me was unwavering, unconditional love for 48 years. That love was steady, resolute, absolute, and also a call to service. That embrace of love made everything else possible. But Baba's story cannot be told without speaking of struggle. He grew up in pre-independence India, the son of a ticket collector, in a home where money was always scarce. During his university years, meals were sometimes limited to one a day. Those years left their profound imprint, not as bitterness, but as purpose. One time in the early 2000s, we visited a new Pizza Hut in Noida, in India. He was gobbling up his food, and I was embarrassed looking around and annoyed, and I said, "Baba, why do you always eat so fast?" It took a few minutes to respond, and then he said, "I faced years when I worried that if I did not eat the food quickly enough, it would disappear." It was a sobering reminder of how my privilege is built on his struggles. I have never forgotten that moment. He knew that education would be his way out of the poverty and the challenges, and he pursued it with ferocious discipline, not only for himself, but for the generations he would lift along with him. As a little girl, I would sit in his office chair in IIT Delhi, telling everyone, "Ami Baba Hobo, I'll be my father someday." Today, I spend my life as a professor, knowing I'm here because of the path that he forged for us. His mind was vast. It's well established that he was a juggernaut in the field of microelectronics, but he also had a deep talent for languages. For example, he learned Russian in his 20s when he did his postdoc in Moscow. And when I was a child, I remember him teaching me Cyrillic. He read French and Dutch engineering textbooks with quiet ease, and as a result of his collaborations with France and Holland, he also sat beside me in French classes at the Alliance Française de Delhi. But most of all, he was deeply proud of his mother tongue, Bangla, held Sanskrit in such deep reverence, and until the very end, spoke Hindi with elegance and the occasional mischievous Bihari lilt. "Kya baje?" he would ask, and it was both a question and a poem. He was one of the most brilliant minds I have ever known. He's fiercely curious, relentlessly exacting, and gloriously undiplomatic. He did not suffer exploitation or mediocrity or incompetence. He lived by a deep code of integrity, of honesty, of intellectual seriousness. And he held everyone, especially himself, to those standards. He was always politically engaged. He followed Indian and world politics and debated everyone, his brother in particular, my husband, me, with rigor and relish. His mind did not tire. It sparred, it searched until his very last breath. And yet he also took deep joy in the pleasures of this world. A good wedge of Dutch cheese, the softness of French sheep's cheese, a perfectly dressed salad that my husband would make for him, or fresh baguettes from an oven. He also loved pizza, but above all, he loved my mother's Niramish Bengali cooking. And he was fiercely disciplined in his habits, his food, his routines, his reading, his yoga, his meditation. But discipline for him was never punitive. It was sacred. It was a way of holding space for the life of the mind and the spirit. When my daughter Kalika, named after the goddess Kali that Baba revered so much, was diagnosed with Rett syndrome, a rare neurological disorder, his world wobbled. At first, he didn't know where to situate the grief, but over time, he began to speak of what he called positivity. Just last week, he told me that the challenges we faced as a family are part of a constellation of blessings. We discussed how it was the good deeds of our ancestors that led us to the gift of Kalika and to learn and grow with her disease. That was Baba, refusing to collapse in the face of adversity, always asking what we are being called to do and rising to do it. His own blindness in his final decades never defined him. Instead, he saw it as a part of a longer arc of what it means to live creatively within visual limitations, of expanding sensory opportunities, of what it means to make meaning in the context of significant disability. He never stopped learning, never stopped teaching, never stopped wondering what was possible. At 90, he was asking me to explain current advancements in AI, still wanting to learn how machines work and think, and still trying to make sense of the world, even as he was preparing to leave it. But as his mind reached forward, it remained anchored in the places and poetries that shaped him. He loved the Ganga and the Himalayas, their vast quietness, their indomitable presence. If Paris, his beloved city outside of India, was magic, and it always was, and I was so lucky to go with him there several times, it was Rishikesh that called him home. That was his spiritual center, the place where he always found peace. In his final week, he asked Ma to sing him Tagore's Dako More Aji e Nishite, a song of invocation, not consolation. Call me in this night when the world is asleep. It was a quiet ascent to departure, a final act of philosophical clarity. The scholar, the thinker, long devoted to inquiry, turned toward mystery, not to solve it, but to enter it. Another beloved Bengali writer he loved was Sri Aurobindo, whose Savitri was his favorite. He immersed in the intricate passages and read them with reverence, and in his last week, I was there reading the first canto, and he listened as if the language held the key to the cosmos. So I'll be ending with a few lines he loved. Almost one felt opaque, impenetrable, in the somber symbol of her eyeless muse, the abysm of the unbodied infinite, a fathomless zero occupied the world. Baba, I'm grateful you are one with that unbodied infinite now. You are always within me. I will aspire to the greatest ideals of integrity you lived and gave to us, to think boldly, to love fiercely, and to live with uncompromising attachment to your belief in why life matters, to do service. Thank you for the gift of your love and your boundless light. The world is infinitely dimmer today. Bye, Baba.